October, birth month of Ellie. How's it going, everyone? I am the Shaz here with your video covering the upcoming events happening on the global server for the month of October. As some of you may have noticed, I'm doing something a little different for this video. Instead of going over 2 months worth of events in one video, I'll go a little more in-depth into a single month's worth of events. As always, I will preface this video by saying I am following the JP timeline, so if we have any deviations on the global server, I will try to make another video to let you know about them. And with that, let's get started. Following the Umi Ruby Fest banner that bridges September and October, we get the Steam Maiden Exchange event. This event wasn't very contested on JP, but I doubt that will stop some of the hardcore Nico Oshis from going absolutely crazy during this event. Again, with event banners, unless you're looking to buy out the event shop, I wouldn't bother scouting on this banner unless you're doing daily paid gem pulls. The other thing I will mention, this is the first instance where the event gacha banners are split, meaning the first part of the banner only lasts 4 days, and the second part of the banner lasts the remaining 4 days, though the shiny quartz are shared. First, let's talk about the event UR, Nico 4. Event Nico is not bad, though due to her kit and her typing, it does make her a little less desirable than Pana 2. The basics: a pure attribute SP type card with higher base appeal than Pana 2, but lower stamina and technique when compared at Limit Break 1. The trade-off for her appeal comes in the form of a pretty abysmal SP gauge fill tap active, which only fills for 7% at max skill level compared to the 9% for Pana 2. Nico's passive does prove to be slightly more useful than Pana 2's, as she has an all-member technique buff versus Pana 2's attribute-only technique buff. Nico 4 does have an interesting live show active, however, as hers is, quote, if activated at the beginning of an appeal chance, adds 2% of own technique to the SP gauge. It's not a great LSA since it's very dependent on how many ACs there are in a song, but hey, it's better than nothing. As for the gacha event cards, the first part of the banner gives us Steam Maiden Hanamaru, or Maru 4. The best event UR out of the 3, she's a cool attribute SK type card that I actually own on JP. For an SK type gauge filler, her base stats are kind of insane. As of the recording of this video, Maru 4 has the highest base appeal out of all gauge fill URs, with 6111 at Limit Break 0. Yes, she has a higher base appeal than Fest Emma. She has a low base stamina though at 3286, which is only a few hundred points above that of a Limit Break 0 Yo 1. Her technique, however, is at a base 6270 and has a crit rate of 33%, which means the more you can limit break this card, the harder the crits are going to come. If you somehow end up with a max limit break Maru 4, she ends up with almost 11k appeal, nearly 6k stamina, and 11.2k technique, and will crit at a crazy 48% rate, which at this point of the game only trails a max limit break Yo 1 for the highest crit rate among cool URs. Her tap active, much like the rest of the gauge fillers from this point forward, are less than that of some of the earlier URs, as she can only max out at an 8% gauge fill. Her passive makes her quite good as a cool attribute backliner, as she provides a max 5.2% appeal buff to other cool attribute cards at max limit break. Her live show active, however, is like that of Pana 2, but instead of it being a skill activation rate increase for all members for the next 10 notes, it just increases the rate for same attribute cards. The last event UR from the second part of the gacha is Steam Maiden Kanata. She's a natural attribute guard type UR with a damage reduction tap active. Most of her stats line up very similarly to that of Honoka 1, though what Kanata 2 loses from Honoka 1 in appeal and stamina, she makes up for in having almost 1k more technique. Much like Honoka 1 and Riko 1, Her tap active maxes out at 14% damage reduction for the next 10 notes, which isn't great. Her passive ability is also pretty mediocre as well, as it only buffs the stamina of other cards in her strategy by a maximum of 7%. Her live show active may seem decent, as it provides a shield at the beginning of an appeal chance equal to 8% of her stamina, but even at limit break 0 with the inclusion of her passive, it's only a 548 damage shield that gets generated. This amount of shield is less than half of what something like Pana 1 would generate on her tap active at limit break 0. As for the Gacha SR, Nozomi is not great. An active attribute guard type SR with a damage reduction tap active. The best comp I can give to this card is Fruits Nico, as their stats line up very closely. Her damage reduction tap active is a bleh 11% for 10 notes at max skill level. Her passive only increases the stamina of same attribute cards at a paltry 3.2% at max skill level, but like Fruits Nico, her live show active is a 50% chance to cleanse negative debuffs upon SP gauge usage. After the Steam Maiden event concludes, we get the October Spotlight banner featuring Mari 4 and Soreboku SR Umi. Mari 4 is a Smile attribute SP type UR that has the Gauge Bomb ability that increases the voltage of an SP gauge usage based on the conditions of her tap active. Stat-wise, for a Gauge Bomber, she's pretty middle of the road. 5320 base appeal at limit break 0 makes her considerably worse than most of the other bombers, like Daya 1, Fes Karen, Maki 3, and Fes Umi. Her tap active, however, is not based on her appeal, but on her technique, which is a base 6270 at limit break 0, which moves the effectiveness of her tap active in line with that of Daya 1. Her passive is the same attribute technique buff, which is not fantastic either, but it does increase what her tap active and live show active do. Speaking of her LSA, it's another unusual one that is comparable to Fes Umi's, but has more restrictions. It says, if activated on her own critical taps, increase the voltage boost of the next SP skill by 20% of own technique. This skill also activates at a 20% rate, which means that even if she crits 1/3 of the notes she taps, on a song with roughly 180 notes, she'll only proc this LSA on an average a total of 12 times. This means that, after you include her passive, when she crits, she'll add another base 1311 voltage to the next XP gauge, which isn't great, even if this activates 12 times. The day after the Spotlight Gacha started was when we got the second official SBL. However, with the early move up in timeline to accommodate for another event, the second SBL will most likely be at the end of September or the beginning of October. I will do a video on this very soon, but just to preview, the songs for the second SBL are Bokura no Life Kimito no Life, or Borarara, Toriko Riko Please, and Chase. The stat bonuses for this SBL will go to the second years. Following the end of the second SBL on JP, we got the China Made event, featuring Event UR Daya 4, Brightest Melody SR Kanon, Marching Band Arena, and Gacha Cards Ayumu 2, Rin 4, and Soreboku SR Honoka. Let's start off by talking about the Event UR Daya 4, a natural attribute voltage type with pretty decent stats for an Event UR. Assuming you tier high enough to get a second copy of her, she has 5367 base appeal at Limit Break 1. This puts her appeal on par with the Limit Break 0 Kasumi 2 UR from the Magical Time event. She has an unusually higher than expected base stamina and a pretty average technique that only allows her to crit at a roughly 15% rate if you use her in the front line. Her tap active is the Voltage Boost, think Fest Setsuna and Nico 1 tap active, which, based on her lower appeal, is not great. Her passive is an all members technique buff, like the event Rico we got a few months ago, but her live show active is another in a string of interesting LSAs. Her LSA, if activated upon switching strategies, increase the appeal of all members by 3.2% for the next 5 notes, activating at a 20% rate. Not a great overall card, but hey, it's an event UR, so you shouldn't be expecting much in the way of usefulness anyway. As for the event SRs, there isn't much usefulness coming out of either Brightest Melody Kanon or Marching Band Rina. The only sort of redeeming quality about either of the cards is Marching Band Rina, whose LSA states, if activated at the beginning of the live, increases value of critical taps on all members by 3% for the remainder of the live, activating at a 30% rate. The only way I can see this card being particularly viable is if you're running a crazy crit strat with frontline cards like Fest Emma, Fest Umi, Fest Mari, Fest Pana, Ellie 1, Yo 1, Nico 2, Kasumi 1, or Maru 4. The first part of the event gacha banner gives us Ayumu 2, a natural attribute SK type UR. She's another appeal-based SK type, though significantly weaker appeal-wise than a comparable card, Maki 1. At 5842 base appeal at Limit Break 0, she gets beat out by non-fest cards like Maki 1, Daya 1, Koto 2, Shizuku 1, and Maru 4. The appeal buff she generates from her tap active, however, is better than that of Maki 1, as it is an 8% appeal buff to all cards in the same strategy, though only for the next 5 notes after activation. Her passive is on the weaker side, since it only buffs appeal to other second year cards, though it is a max of 5.2% at max skill level. Her LSA has a 30% chance to add 8% of her own appeal as an SP gauge fill at the completion of an appeal chance, which is a nice card to use as a backliner in some SBL SP cheese cycle strats. Soreboku Honoka is not particularly great, as she has a lot of weaker abilities in her kit. Comparable card to this would be Owl Jump Maru, which we got from the Miracle Voyage event. She has okay appeal, base 3766 at Limit Break 0, low stamina, and a decent technique stat. However, her full kit is a bit of an issue for me. Her tap active is an SP gauge gain increase, which I don't personally care for unless it's in the right team composition. Her passive is a technique buff just for other SP type cards, which makes it even weaker, and her LSA is a gauge gain increase by 8% for the next 10 nodes if it activates upon AC completion, which will only happen 30% of the time. Now, the second part of the China-made event banner gives us Rin 4, which is another active attribute guard type. With much of her kit being like her bestie Pana 1, she's got a pretty even base stat line, though Rin 4's highest stat is her stamina, topping out at 6415 base at Limit Break 0. Much like Pana 1, her tap active generates a shield equal to 26% of her stamina at skill level 3, though the trade-off is that she will crit less than Pana 1. Her passive is also the same as Pana 1, giving an all-member stamina buff of 3.6% at skill level 3, but her live show active is what makes them different. Rin 4's LSA generates an additional shield equal to 4% of her total stamina if activated on her own taps, though it only activates at a 10% chance. At the conclusion of the China-made event, we will be getting the Story Chapter 15 update, with the additions of the attribute version of Wonderful Rush and Galaxy Hide and Seek by Azalea. Let's break down each song individually. The active attribute version of Wonderful Rush is a bit of a score inflator, as it has a 7.908 million voltage requirement to S rank on advanced difficulty. This is compensated by a cleansable 20% off attribute debuff, 6 different appeal chances, and a lot of notes, especially at the start of the song. The appeal chances do benefit from you running active attribute cards in your frontline, though it is not required. For some of you, the scariest part about this song may be the damage per note, as it is 703 damage per tap on advanced difficulty. This negates some of the effectiveness of cards like Ellie 1 and Yo 1, but boosts the effectiveness of something like Fest Nico, so adjust your sustain slot accordingly. Galaxy Hide and Seek is a song with some pretty interesting gimmicks. A pure attribute song with a non-cleansable 20% off attribute debuff, so hopefully you have some strong pure scorers or strong enough appeal cards that can battle through the penalty. Hide and Seek is interesting in the sense that all appeal chances have a chance, if you happen to proc an SP strategy switch bonus, will fill up 25% of your SP gauge, which would allow you to pop that one extra gauge you may need to S rank the song. The rest of the song, however, isn't too difficult. just 3 voltage appeal chances and 1 SP gauge pop AC at the end. Finally, we get to the Fest banner for October. Full disclosure, this is the banner I am sparking on both my main and my alt account, as it features 2 of my 3 Oshis. Let's start with Ellie. Fest Ellie is an elegant attribute SP type gauge filler, which will immediately draw comparisons to Fest Emma. The differences in their stat lines are pretty minuscule, as Ellie has a higher base appeal and stamina but lower technique, which means she will crit slightly less than Fest Emma. The vast difference between the two comes between their passive abilities and LSAs. While Fest Emma employs an all-member technique increase, Ellie just increases the other third years, which means that though the two would be good to run as a duo for some SBL cheesing, they'd suffer from a lower skill activation rate due to having 2 SP types in the same strategy. Ellie's LSA is also more useful than Emma's, especially if you're not switching strategies, as her LSA provides a voltage boost to the SP gauge equal to 15% of her own appeal, activating at a 50% rate at the beginning of an appeal chance. Finally, let's talk about Fest I. This card, limit breaks being equal, is the best cool score in the game at this point, even beating out Fest Karen. This comes from her voltage typing versus Karen's SP typing. At limit break 0, their stats, as you can see here, are pretty comparable to each other. Ai's tap active increases voltage gain of all members by 6.6%. Think Umi 2 and Rin 2's tap active, but stronger. Her passive increases the appeal of same attribute cards by 4.6% at skill level 3, same as Maki 1, and her LSA, if activated upon AC completion, increases the appeal of same attribute cards by 8.2% for the next 5 nodes. To summarize, if you pull this card and have some of the other cool attribute powerhouses like Maki 1, Fest Karen, Nozo 3, or Yoha 4, you shouldn't have any trouble with cool attribute songs for the foreseeable future. And with that, we are done covering the upcoming events for the month of October on the global server. Let me know in the comments if you prefer the single month or dual month format of these preview videos so that I can have more insight to which type of videos best suit you, the viewer. If you enjoyed this video and would like to support my work, share this video, subscribe for free here on YouTube, follow me for free on Twitch over at twitch.tv/IamTheShaz, and join my Twitch channel Discord. Links will be in the description below. If my Twitch and or YouTube content is worthy enough and you would like to support monetarily, you can subscribe to or give bits on my Twitch channel. It is never required of you as a viewer, but always greatly appreciated. Finally, a big thanks to my Twitch subs, IMCL, 86Romi, Mino Mone, Shut It, Poker Dottie, and AJ Bailey 3, most of whom have gifted subs in the channel as well. I've been I Am The Shaz, take it easy, be nice to each other, and I'll see you all next time.